So if you clicked on this video wondering if Lee Chaolan in Tekken 8 is actually as bad as a lot of these, YouTube videos are making him out to be, you are in the right place. But before I get into that, I want to take a moment and leave a disclaimer. Now, if you want to skip past this, I will have chapters that I will include in the video after it's uploaded. But I want to say this preemptively because I expect this video to ruffle some feathers of the Lee Chaolan community, potentially. I want to say, number one, I am not a Lee main. I never claimed to be. My main character for many years has been Lei Wulong, who is not even in Tekken 8. But I don't need to main your character. I have 30 years of experience in this franchise, and I am exceptional when it comes to breaking down a character. And to be quite honest, over the last couple of days, I've been seeing video after video of YouTube creators and some Lee mains complaining that their character is dead, quote unquote, their character is worthless. If I didn't know any better, I would swear that the character was actually the worst character in this game. So I don't expect to change the minds of some of the OG players that main Lee Chaolan. So this video is more so for like some of the newer players who just, if you really want to hear a different perspective, then this video is definitely for you. And I have no problem engaging in the comment section. If I am wrong on certain things, I'm open to being wrong. This video is not meant to disrespect anybody or admonish anybody's opinion. This is just things that I see based on my years of experience in Tekken and what I've actually seen of this character. So like I said, there'll be chapters in this video. I'll do my best as I can. This will not be an exhaustive breakdown because that would take me a lot longer, but I'm going to highlight just a few key examples. Anyway, let's get after it. So the first move I want to cover is one of the most panic-based moves in the entire franchise of Tekken, period. And that is Lee's back four. Okay? Now, Lee's back four, it is one of those moves that is infamous in terms of being a panic move, comeback move, whiff, punish, whatever you want to call it. It is what it is. And for many years, this move has remained safe. It's a counter hit launcher. It's 20 frames. However, what some of you may not be aware is why is this move such an effective panic move? What makes this move stand out from some other moves out there? So I'm going to tell you. If you actually direct your attention to where it says attack startup frames, this is something that a lot of new players especially, and maybe even some pros are not aware of. When you look at the attack startup frames, you see how it says 20-22? What that means is that the attack will make contact with the opponent on the 20th frame. However, it has 2 additional frames where the move is still active. So if you happen to be pressing into Lee, which ironically is really part of his game because Lee wants you to press buttons into him, no homo, no diddy. So I'm gonna show this right quick in photo mode, right? Watch this. Okay, so now we're gonna go to photo mode. Okay, so we're gonna advance it a frame, right? Okay, gonna advance it a little bit. 7. Okay, let's go a little bit more. It's coming around. So typically right around there is when it is making physical contact on your opponent at the 20th frame. However, since frames really matter in this game, if by some off chance, and this is what ends up being the case most of the time, if you happen to be pressing a button even After that 20th frame, up to 2 additional frames, you will be hit on counter and lose damn near 100 damage. And let's not talk about how safe this move is also, because this move has next to no recovery time. Next to no recovery time. This is why a Lee player can essentially run this move ad nauseum with minimal risk. Minimal risk, okay? And then on block, the move is -3. So the move is safe, basically. So after you block a back 4 and you're -3, let's just say if you just so happen to want to mash buttons and try to, press your advantage. This is what can possibly happen to you. You can get hit with that, which is Hitman 4. Depending on the move that is used, you may be on the receiving end of a Lee armor move. Naturally, if the opponent is just throwing a 10-frame jab, I believe if it's 14 frames and higher, you will eat that armor move from Lee. So even though Lee is -3 on that move, he is not without some form of options. And so the complaints that I've been hearing and reading is that back 3 lost 3 points of damage. Three huge points of damage, and I'm being sarcastic, of course. So one of the main points of the updated patch notes that Lee has suffered a quote-unquote nerf on his back 4, and upon investigation, I learned that it's still a counter hit launcher. It's still safe at -3. It still comes out at 20 frames. It still has 2 active frames to actually enable it to be just as deadly as it was for like the longest time. So the issue is that it has 3 missing points of damage. That's the big complaint. So instead of taking 20 damage, apparently it does 3 points damage less. Okay. Let me explain to you what a real nerf would be to back 4. Because I don't think a lot of players even understand what a nerf and a buff really mean. So let me help you out. And I'm being very forthcoming. If back 4 was -12 on block, that's a nerf. That's a nerf. In fact, if you ask me, I feel that's actually fair given the fact that the move is a very deadly panic move. It's a move that's -3 on block, and the fact that it's a counter hit launcher and it has 2 active frames, ensuring that the move is still on the screen for 2 additional frames after it's whiffed, really. So I fail to sympathize with the lead player that's complaining about the so-called nerf of back 4. Like I said, if back 4 was -12, then you would have an argument. But I'm sorry, I cannot co-sign the rage behind a move that's going to allow a counter hit launch that's going to take you from one end of the galaxy to the next and resulting in damn near 80+ damage just because you just happen to be pressing a move at the time he's throwing out a Hail Mary back 4. I can't do it. I can't co-sign it. Let's move on to the next point. So another constant complaint or concern I've heard from Lee players in general has been regarding his lows. Apparently all of his lows are launch punishable or something like that to that effect. So the thing with down 3, now I don't agree that it should be -15 because that's right up there with Fengwei's down back 3. I think I understand the logic that they made that move launch punishable because it is a relatively quick move. It's 16 frames, and it is a perfect high crush. So as you just saw, I'll show it again. Victor's gonna mash on 1-2, down 3, all that's guaranteed. So I have a feeling that the main reason why they made down 3 launch punishable is because of the fact that it is a very strong high crush, and it does lead to a guaranteed follow-up. Now, you may not agree with that as a Lee player, but that's just the fact. That's just what it is. So moving on. Now, we have his slide. Now, the slide is 25 frames. I don't know about doing the just frame, but in any event, it's minus 15. I don't know if I agree with that being launch punishable. However, as you can see, or you may not be able to see, the move is 25 to 31 frames. So what that means, again, much like back 4, that means that Lee's slide will connect on the 25th frame. That's the earliest frame. However, from 25 up to 31, it can still make contact on the opponent. So when you do the move up close, it is minus 15. However, if I do it at a slight distance, you can see it now becomes minus 13. If I go out even further still, if I time it properly, now it becomes minus 9, as you just saw. Now, of course, that does take some time to mastering the distance, but maybe that could be a new challenge for some of you Lee players out there to make your slide a little bit safer. Because if you do it at that distance, what I just showed just now, which I'm surprised I just did it live in this video, it becomes minus 9 and it would be then safe. So moving on to the next low. So Hitman 4. Now the interesting thing about Hitman 4 is that this is a 22 frame low sweep. However, if you notice, it is an arcing sweep. It's a literal sweep. Most of the time in Tekken, think Lee Chaolan, my character, his lays down back 4 causes a stagger block. If you block Kazuya's hell sweep, it causes a stagger block. However, this low does not. This low, he keeps on going. Now, I don't mind that. However, this low is only minus 13, which I feel is very fair, and it is also, much like down 3, it is also a perfect high crush. So now, this is what the move will look like on counter hit. So on counter hit, this move results in an actual combo for the Lee player. So let's just recap this, okay? You have a 22 frame low that is and also has active frames. That's 2 additional active frames. So the low can actually hit you on the 24th frame. So not only is it a perfect high crush, not only is it a counter hit combo starter, it is only minus 13. Now, is it launch punishable? Yeah, to some characters, very few. I believe Kazuya, I think Kazuya's Twin Pistons, 13 frames. But most of the other cast of characters, nope. So it's a pretty solid low. Especially since there's so many different ways to kind of bait your opponent into pressing buttons on you, and then you could just simply sneak this through customs and you get like almost a 60 to 70 damage combo. Anyway, let's move on to the next low attack. So the next low attack I want to focus on is his fully crouched down forward 4. Now, this move, yes, it is a 16 frame low. Basically it's the same frames as his down 3, right? So Lee's down 3 is 16. It's a 16 frame startup. And his fully crouched down forward right kick, or down forward 4, is also 16 frame startup. However, the difference is that this is minus 14. Now, this attack, for instance, is launchable by, Kazuya at 13, and even my character for Tekken 8 Raven at also, 14 frames. However, this move is also a high crush attack, and on hit, this move is on hit plus 3. And on counter hit, it knocks down for a guaranteed follow-up for 39 damage. So, can I see the argument that that move might be a little bit unsafe? I can see the argument for that move. I can see the argument. Could it be maybe minus 13? Sure. But is it a bad low? No. I've seen far worse lows. So anyway, moving on to the next low. Now this brings me to Lee's down back 3, which is this move right here. Now this move by itself and on the surface is not what you would call a sexy, strong low attack. What this low attack is for, it is used to set up Lee's other attacks. This is why you see a move like this, even Raven, for instance, Raven's down 3. It's a very small, unassuming low. Raven's is like 15 frames, it's 0 on hit, does like maybe 10 damage, but it's designed to get someone to press buttons. And it's the same thing with Lee, as I'm about to just demonstrate very shortly. So yes, again, while this low is, it does 12 damage, on counter hit, I believe it does 14. Yeah, counter hit, this move does 14 damage. So the point of down back 3 is to elicit a response from your opponent. And one scenario could look like this. So as your opponent is mashing a retaliatory strike after getting hit by this move, the down 3 is going to pretty much eliminate that because it's a perfect high crush. Another situation you can use, because in case you might think, well, what if they just happen to hop kick me or do something else, you can just simply do this as well. You can add in your armor attack. So if your opponent happens to do like a hop kick to try to time you from doing the down 3 follow-up, you can instead change up your routine by just simply doing a armor move. And lastly, if you really just want to keep it really safe and reposition yourself, you could just simply sidewalk away. Ultimately, this move, down back 3 from Lee, like I said, it's not something super amazing, it's not sexy, it's not going to stop the world, it's not going to, or should I say, it's not going to set the world on fire, so to speak, but it is designed to get your opponent to retaliate against you. It is meant to be a setup to another tactic. That's why Lee has that particular attack. And also, more importantly, the move is -12. So this is a low attack. While not amazing in and out of itself, it is safe from being launched. Let's move on to the next low. So the next low attack on the list that I see from Lee is down back both kicks, or down back right kick, left kick, and it's this move right here. Now personally, I really like this kick because some of the best lows in the game are 20 frame kicks. Like think Jin's down back 4, Kazuya's down back 4. You know, so 20 to 22 frames for a low attack is pretty damn good. This move is 21 frames, but it also has 2 additional active frames. That's why it shows 21, 23. So this move is actually active for 2 additional frames afterwards. Also, this move does 19 damage, which is actually very strong. It is +4 on hit. The one thing I would say, and I would probably argue for, is this. Now, this right here, I feel, honestly, there can be an argument that perhaps this low could have been an actual high crush low. Based on what I could see from the animation, I feel this low could have been a high crush, but you know, that's neither here nor there. Maybe in the future they'll change that, but for right now, let's see what this move does on counter hit. So on counter hit, down back 4, it knocks you down, and the damage is now 22 damage, and it leads to a guaranteed follow-up of the blazing kick for 41 damage. Let me see. Is there something else I can probably... Oh, okay, look at that. The only reason why I thought of that is because you can do the same thing with Raven. When you do Raven's counter hit down back 4 and you do the heat smash, they activate heat. So who knows what Lee can get out of that situation. But if you don't want to utilize your heat, you could just simply, from what I can see, just do the blazing kick, and that's 41 free damage for you. And most importantly, this move is only minus 13. So all of the benefits that you get for a low attack that's only minus 13, that is very strong. I think that is a very strong attack. So let's move on to the next low attack. Now, this one is pretty interesting because it's quite tricky. And I do believe, depending on the skill of the Lee, you could do this very quick and probably have no telegraph. I'm not that good with it. But it's basically you tap forward to dash. That's pretty cool from Lee that you don't have to do an actual quarter circle forward motion to do his dash. You just simply tap forward. And then when you tap forward, tap back, he has a sway. Now, what I will say about this particular thing, I do feel that Lee should be able to have an actual manual input to sway back by himself. Like just like how Brian and Paul can just quarter circle back, I feel they should have gave that to Lee. That I will give Lee players. And maybe it's one that you guys haven't even thought of. Because I do feel it's kind of weird that you have to dash forward first and then tap back to get access to this. When you're in that particular backsway position and you do right kick, you have access to this low. Now this low, as you can see, it is 20 damage. It is 21 frame startup. It does have one additional active frame, making it 21, and it can make contact on the 22nd frame. And also it is +5, which is very, very good. Now, what does this move do on counter hit? This move actually gives you a +12 situation. +12. And that's guaranteed. So you can pretty much follow up with 10 to 11 frame attacks, and it will be guaranteed. For example, that's guaranteed, I believe. That's guaranteed. So you get the point. You can experiment with that, but that's what ends up happening when you make contact with that particular move on counter hit. You get +12, and that means that anything from 10 frames and 11 is going to be guaranteed on the person that is recovering from that 12 frame stun. And most importantly, what is this move on block? This move is -13, the same as down back both kicks. So down back both kicks and this sway back low, they are both -13, and as such they are very strong lows. Another thing I want to highlight is that this particular attack, as well as the back sway and the forward dash, they each have high crush properties, and I will demonstrate that right now. Now we're gonna add on the right kick, and it counted as a punish. I'll do it again. Okay, so I did it right there. So you do have access to that as a possibility if you want to do that. And of course, any move that you can do with Lee that will allow you to gain access to the forward dash, which I believe is the 1-2, back 2. So you can do the same thing, as you can see, back 2, dash forward, sway back. You have access to that. So I believe that is also a very strong option. So all in all, do I feel that Lee Chaolan has the worst lows in the game? No, I do not. He does have some very solid lows. Are some of them launch punishable? Yes. Are all of them launch punishable? No. If I'm looking at his 13 frame low attacks, really only Kazuya and I don't know if there's anybody else that launches in this game at 13 frames. But he's really the exception. He's not really the rule. If you want to argue and say the down 3, the slide, those moves that are -15 and higher, you can make an argument for that. However, those moves do carry additional benefits that I believe balances things out, especially if you make use of all of his low attacks and not just favor just one. So I believe that it's a bit exaggerated when I hear Lee players say that their lows are absolute trash. I believe 100% that that is an exaggeration. Let's move on to the next phase. So one of the other things I heard that Lee players complained about was the loss of the heat engager, or the heat engager element or aspect of Hitman up 3 or up forward 3, whatever, right? Now, I just want to say that this attack has been buffed according to the patch notes from whatever damage it did prior. I don't know what it did prior, but now it does 32 damage on hit. On hit. So while you lost the heat engager aspect, you have a 30 frame damage attack that is a perfect low crush. It's a mid. It comes out at 20 frames. And it is completely safe on block, as you can see. This move is -9 on block. Oh, and it also does 9 chip. And if we have an understanding of chip damage in Tekken 8, we would actually know that 9, the digit 9, is actually among the highest amount of chip damage a singular move grants you in Tekken 8. Most moves in Tekken will give you maybe 4 chip, 6 chip. This move gives you 9 chip. 9 chip damage for this. And it actually has 2 additional frames of active frames. So basically it is 20 and 22, the same as back 4. As I covered earlier, back 4 is 20 frame startup. It also has 2 additional active frames. The exact same thing frame-wise carries over for up 3 out of Hitman, which is 20 on the first frame that it can actually make contact with you, and 2 additional frames after the fact. And again, like I said, it is safe on block, and it does 9 chip. Now on hit, the move, as I stated, does 32 damage. 32 damage in Tekken 8 is a very powerful single strike blow. And also, we can't discount the fact that the move also wall splats. Can't discount that as well. Now, what does this move do on counter hit? This move does 38 damage on counter hit. We'll show that again. 38 damage. So you have a 38 damage counter hit, mid attack, that's a perfect low crush, wall splats, safe on block, and also does 9 chip damage. Okay. I fail to understand the argument how that's a bad thing and how that's a nerf. Now if you want to complain about your heat engagers, let's talk about that in the next section. So in terms of Lee's heat engagers, as I explained about Hitman up 3, that heat engager now has been transferred over to his Hitman 111, which a lot of Lee players seem to not like. However, I do find it very interesting that maybe there are players that seem to forget that Law also has a heat engager that is 111. Now, while his comes out at 10 frames and his ender is a mid, and it's unsafe, Lee is a high. However, Lee's is safe at -7. So -7, 111. Now, while you can duck this, the whole point of this is you are mixing up and conditioning your opponent with Lee's Hitman 1. Because Lee's Hitman 1 is +2 on block. 1-1 is -2 on block, and it keeps him in Hitman. And then you can also dash, I believe, after. Just like this. You can actually do that. Now, let's just say, since this is a very non-committal situation, let's put Victor to actually attack. Let's go through these potential situations. So now we're going to have Victor mash jabs, which is most people's retaliation anyway. So if Lee does Hitman 1, right? If he does 1-1, right? Now, if we know our opponent is just going to be mashy and just be a nut, this is when we just let go of the third attack. And there's your heat engagement. So now that you put the fear of the possibility of your opponent mashing his way into getting hit by a heat engager, your opponent will eventually stop mashing. And then it will start to look like this. Now your opponent will no longer start mashing because they are concerned about that last hit. Now they may try to time you by trying to preemptively duck because that last punch is a high. So either way, it doesn't matter. They have not mashed after your initial Hitman 1-1 and you are still in Hitman. And you are free to now mix up your opponent however way you see fit at that point. However, another scenario can be like this. You can also throw in an armor attack. I referenced this back, I believe it was utilizing Lee's standing down back 3. So if your opponent is mashing and they happen to be doing a slower type move, or they just happen to want to just go YOLO and do a hop kick, this will keep you safe. Now, of course, they can still time you and actually crouch under it and launch you, but then again, there's very few things, very few situations in Tekken in general that are 100% guaranteed. So it is up to you as the lead player to condition your opponent and to make proper reads against your opponent. Another thing that you can do as well is you could just simply do Hitman 1-1. So now I want to move on to a maneuver that I saw in the patch notes that really stood out to me. Lee's forward 2. Now this move, whatever it was before, I think it was 17 or 18 frame startup or whatever it was, but right now it's a 15 frame starter. And it is +2 on block, and if you hold forward to dash forward, right, doing Lee's dash, it now becomes +5 on block. Now, I really like this move, and I think this is a very effective move. As you can see, it is a 15 frame startup, so you know what move works perfectly synergistically with this move? Forward 3. Forward 3 is still, or I guess it's always been a heat engager from season 1, I'm assuming. I think it is, right? And so forward 3 is 14 frames. It is a safe mid. So what you do is you utilize your forward 3 in conjunction with forward 2. That's what it's designed to do. Those moves are designed to work together because, again, the forward 2 is 15, the forward 3 is 14. So that means your opponent only has 1 frame to fuzzy guard, which means the amount of time they have to make a different defensive decision. And 1 frame, quite frankly, in my opinion, is damn sure not enough. So with this particular high, you're going as the defending player, this is an attack at 15 frames. You have to preemptively be already ducking to deal with it. You're not going to see Lee throw this out and then say, oh, he did a 4-4-2, I'm going to duck. No, it's not going to. That's like saying that's like, it reminds me back in the old days, I would hear people say, I can duck electrics on reaction. That was absolute horse shit. And much like it was horse shit back then, it's horse shit today. So maybe if this move was 27 frames, but 15 frame high, that is +2 on block and +5 if you hold forward, that is a very strong move. Oh, and let's not also discount the fact that the move does 6 chip damage. And if you were to actually be able to do the just frame version of this move, so the just frame of that move does 10 chip damage. That's among, if not the highest single strike chip damage you can do, based on my understanding. So just like I showed you with another move that Lee has, which is Hitman up 3 that does 9 chip, the just frame of forward forward 2 does 10 chip damage. So the reason why it does chip damage at all at that level is because it is rewarding the Lee player for taking the risk, because it is a risk, for doing a high attack like this. So it gives the Lee player a bit of an incentive that if you manage to get your opponent to block this move, you can take up to 10 chip, 6 being the minimum. And you're also getting 10 plus frame, 2 plus frames, 5 if you're holding forward. And then you would simply mix that up with your safe mid-striking heat engager of forward forward 3, which is coming out 1 frame faster than your forward forward 2. So between those two moves right there, that 100%, in addition to your poking strategy, your neutral game of your 1s, your 1-2s, your down forward 1s, this should be part of your general strategy with Lee Chaolan. 100%, because it was designed to be that way. That's why they made the startup frames of forward forward 2 to go in line with forward forward 3. That is when you know you have a perfect to semi-perfect mix between mid-low, mid-high, or whatever. The smaller amount of frames between one move and another will dictate how strong your mix is. So for instance, if this move was 15 and forward forward 3 was 15, it would be a perfect mix. There would be no way for you to guess. You couldn't fuzzy at all. But at 1 frame difference, it's pretty much no way you're going to fuzzy it anyway. Lee players will probably say, well, you know, you can sidestep both moves. Of course you can. And that brings me to my next point. So let's talk about Lee's tracking 1+2. This move, honestly, I don't feel it gets discussed enough. You know, for all of the complaints I hear about Lee, oh, he lost his tracking, look, I'm going to get into that at the end of the video, but I just want to prioritize this move here. So standing 1+2 is a tracking, basically it's a safe tracking mid attack. It's safe at -1. It comes out at 21 frames, and as you have seen, you know, if you've been following the video so far, it has 1 additional active frame, making it able to land on the 22nd frame. 21st being the first active frame that it can land on your opponent. On hit, this move does 20 damage, and it also gives you +3 advantage, which is pretty solid. It's pretty solid to maintain your offensive pressure. On counter hit, however, this move knocks you down, and it does 24 damage. However, not only does the move knock you down, it actually leads to a full-fledged combo, resulting in the Lee player potentially taking 70 to possibly maybe even 90 damage from simply landing a safe tracking mid attack that may land on counter hit, which will result in a combo. I fail to understand the argument of Lee's tracking when you have a perfectly suited move to deal with sidesteppers. That is, again, safe, it's mid, it's a counter hit launch, and it is +3 on normal hit. I don't know what you Lee players... I'm beginning to think that a lot of you players just want your character to be absolutely broken. I'm beginning to think that. So I want to go over just some basic general strategies. I mean, it's not going to be really in depth, but I want you to understand something from a frame advantage standpoint, a frame startup standpoint. So you remember when I showed you, let me put them on, let me put this guy on block all. So now when I show you standing 1+2, you know what other move is 21 frames that you could mix this up with? That's a perfect mix-up. Down back both kicks. What is down back both kicks? 21 startup. 21 startup. What's standing 1+2? 21 startup. So you know what that translates to? That means if you are looking for the down back both kicks and you are ducking, you are going to get hit by this. If you happen to block this, it doesn't matter because it's completely safe. If you block the down back both kicks, it's only minus 13. It's a little bit of a slap on the wrist, unless you're fighting Kazuya. I could go further in depth with this. I just want the newer crowd to understand. When you are seeing all these YouTube videos of all these players that are shouting from the rooftops that Lee is this, he's in the pine box, he's dead, he's trash, he's this. I want some of you newer players to actually invest some time in the character. Go through his moves. Invest in some lab or practice mode time. And instead of focusing on what the character is missing, try to dive deeper into the benefits of what the character actually has. Because nobody is going to say that Lee is this top 5 character. Because I can tell you, back in Tekken 4, yeah, he was bullshit. Lee Tekken 4, oh yeah, he was top tier. But in this game, he's modest. Is he the best? No. Is he the worst? Hell no. Are the majority of these Lee players complaining that he's like this god-awful character? They're exaggerating. And I'm believing that I have to think that a lot of these Lee players just want their character to be absolutely broken. That's just my opinion. Let me know what you think. Again, this is just for educational purposes. I don't mean no disrespect. I'm just calling it like I see it. Anyway, if you're not currently subscribed, please do so. And anyway, take care. Peace.